welcome Mike onto the podcast.
Hi, David.
Um, Mike is an expert in really helping kind of expertise-based businesses, agencies, consultants, and those sorts of folks kind of um, set things up to be more profitable. Basically, not have, I guess, not be as wasteful. Can you go into a little bit more detail on what you do, and then I kind of want to shift into kind of my first main question, which is like, what are the key elements that every agency should focus on to increase their profitability?
Right, right. Well, first of all, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so quick background and who I am and why you should even listen to what I have to say. I'm Polish. I'm Polish. I live in Canada, and in Poland, I was a trained lawyer, but I never wanted to be a lawyer. I always wanted to work with the businesses. So that's where my kind of story and paths crossed with the business. And because I was a lawyer, I was like, well, how can I work closely with the business? And I became a fraud investigator. So a guy who comes in and looks at what is wrong with the business and where the money is flowing out of the business. And that kind of sparked my passion for understanding how the business works, how all the cogs in the machine kind of were working together, and what happens if we turn this, and what happened, and and so when I kind of felt I was burning out in the corporate world, and being a corporate shark and climbing the ladder that's not necessarily mine, all those things, I was like, well, how can I now use my skills to do something that's less dark, because fraud investigations are pretty dark, and more
Hmm.
creative and more colorful, and like build businesses instead of kind of go in and fire people. And so this is where I kind of went into consulting and helping businesses grow, basically, right? And just by luck, kind of, or coincidence, people starting asking me, like, questions about how we do a marketing and this and that, and I created a business around that. So I started running a marketing agency back in back in Europe, and then I moved to Canada. I opened another agency. I grew it really fast, and then I opened another one with a partner in the US. So I had 3 agencies running, and more people were asking me, how the hell do you do that? Like, why are you moving from 5K per month to $150,000 per month in 12 months? So I started talking to them, and I'm like, well, I'm kind of tired already running those 3 agencies. What if I made this my my business, or helping other people grow? And that's, I get really bored with projects. So if I'm working day in, day out on the same thing with my own agency, that's boring. But when I get clients and they come to me with different questions and different challenges, then that is very, very kind of, I'm very passionate about it, and that helps me stay sane, right? So that's what I've done. And then up to date, I've worked with over 900 businesses out there, not only agencies, like consultants, solopreneurs, freelancers, all type of like online service-based businesses, because they're really the problems and the models and the approach to scale those businesses is pretty the same, right? So it doesn't really matter if we're talking about the agency. There are obviously some specificities when it comes to how the agency works and how a consultant works and stuff like that, but overall the business model is kind of similar.
Hmm.
um, so moving on to your question, how do we make agencies more profitable? I like to say there's 3 dials we can turn, right, to kind of tweak profitability. And profitability should be our focus. Like, there's a lot of startups. We hear startups are getting all the investments and whatnot and fundings and blah blah blah, and they're not profitable for years and years. They focus on the growth, not profits, and that's kind of weird. I'm not an expert in startups, but that is weird to me as a business consultant. I'm like, why not? Like, what are we waiting for, right?
Yeah.
So with the agencies, and kind of for me, the growth is a vanity metric. It's like, views on YouTube that don't bring the results, right? Or the likes, or comments on LinkedIn that don't bring you clients. Like, what is the point? um but anyway, so 3 dials. One is the pricing structure, right? So we want to make sure that the prices are right. And we can expand on this in just a second. Then
Yeah.
the other dial is the cost structure, to make sure there's nothing weighing us down too much. And then the third one, which massive one, is efficiency, right? So we have the pricing, we have the cost, and we have efficiency. Those 3 dials, one, we know how to turn them, and which one has what impact, are the most important ones for us to look into. And the one that's not really being, you know, most agencies will look at pricing. Some of them will look at cost structure, and very few will look at efficiency.
Hmm.
And efficiency is something that will drag them down a lot. Yeah. So that is usually when I come into an agency, and I spend, a week or two understanding what they do, and within the first week we're able to identify the biggest kind of needle movers for them. And then it's just a matter of how quickly we can implement them. And usually most of the time, I would say 80-90% of the time, it's the efficiency piece. Pricing is easy to fix. When I say easy, but it very often comes with mindset change of the founder or the team. Cost is easy. Like you just go in, analyze the cost, and you see what's dragging you down. But efficiency, it's not that easy to actually change, right? So
Mhm.
identifying that as a problem is one issue or challenge. The other one is actually changing that efficiency, because it comes with hiring different people, having different processes,
Right.
implementing the tools and stuff like that. It's not just slapping a different price on the on the website, right? So those are
Yeah.
the those are the three main things. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, starting off, I guess maybe with the pricing piece, um, I imagine there's probably a tension between like um, pricing to be competitive while also pricing to re, have profitability.
Right.
So I guess living in that tension, what do you recommend? Like what are some of your insights there?
Yeah, so and you're completely right. It's always this kind of dance of like I want to be profitable, but also this competition there, right? So we want to make sure that we're charging. So first of all, we want to make sure that we're charging what the market is charging, at least that, right? We don't want to go
Hmm.
kind of start with like very often clients come to me and they're like, oh, we're charging 1,500. I'm like, why? I don't know. I'm like, what are the other companies charging? Oh, we don't know. Well, that's your first step. Like, are you overcharging? Are you undercharging? Right? Very
Hmm.
often we'll learn that we're undercharging because we've been doing this for years and years. We have old clients, legacy clients, and we never change the pricing. Right. So we have to, if the market is asking for 2.5, why are you giving, same offer for 1,500? Right. So first of all, you have to check that. Um, Second of all, obviously, we'll have companies, and these days everyone and their grandma has an agency, so it's kind of like there's a lot of price kind of competition there as well. If we spot that we cannot, with the current overheads and current efficiency, offer like lower the price to be more competitive, then we have to look at the cost structure and efficiency of how can we actually make more room when it comes to the profitability, right? Because the difference
Hmm.
between the profit and the cost, that's profitability, right? So this is where we have to look into those two other dials. And then perhaps, and then other thing is that obviously we look at it from a kind of marketing and sales perspective of how can we differentiate ourselves from the market, right? So that means maybe we have to pivot in the way of maybe the scope has to be different, right? So we cannot be, sometimes it's good to be comparable to your competition, but very often it's better not to be,
Right.
because if someone can compare scope apples to apples, and this apple is exactly the same quality, exactly the same scope, it's cheaper, like why would they go with the other one? So
Yep.
you want to be the orange. You want to be the one like, yeah, well, we're not an apple, but we're this, right? We're the
Yep.
orange. We're sweeter. We're better. We're faster. We're slower. We're like whatever that is. You have to be different in that way, and then you
Hmm.
differentiate yourself. Um, and then there's all these other things, like I like to use like sticking to your policies, making sure that um, you're different, making sure the brand stands kind of like supports your pricing too. What would I buy from you, like all those things, like that help sell at a higher price. um, and then one other thing that comes to my mind when it comes to pricing is that very often when we lower the price, um, the perception of the quality is also lower, right? And also
Hmm.
we're attracting different clients, right?
Yeah.
Those clients who are willing to pay less. And time and time again, we can see that those lower paying clients usually, this is usually the last $500 they have in their bank account, or like their small shop around the corner, whatever that is, and they will give you the money and they will expect the moon from you, right?
Yep.
They will expect
No.
everything,
Yeah.
right? Everything and even more, right? Whereas when you work with a client that's willing to pay $5,000, not only are they more comfortable with spending that money, but also they have a longer runway, they have better operations, they're more successful already, so it's easier to work with them. They're not as pressured, they're not as stressed, right? So what I'm trying to work on with my clients is to really increase the price, but by not just increasing the price and adding a zero, but just looking at how we can work with other clients increasing the scope, changing the type of a client, improve our branding, whatever that is, to kind of
Right.
elevate ourselves to work with a different league. And I don't mean to disrespect anyone who's just starting out, but perhaps your agency should not be working with those people. Maybe a freelancer should, so there's
Right.
always someone else out there who can help them. It's not that you have to save every small business that's just starting out, right? So you have to
Right.
always protect yourself too. And that's something that, a quick analogy for you. I always tell my clients, hey, you have to put your, when you go on a plane and they tell you, I think they still do the kind of safety demonstration, right? They tell you, hey, when the mask drops down from the ceiling, put your mask on first and then help other people. And because the reason why is that if you help, your 5-year-old children, they will not be able to help you if you right. So you have to help yourself first, and that's the same case with the businesses, and you have to make sure that you're profitable first, and then you can go on and save the world. Because if you're not,
Yeah.
if you don't have the profits, right, because you work with small clients, you will not be able to help a higher volume of clients, or you cannot donate money, you cannot work for free and stuff like that. So you have to make money, have the profit first, and then you can think about how you can support those if that's your mission. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you can also you can take some learnings from maybe the bigger clients and then produce something that is a little more self-serve or a little more like low touch sort
Yeah.
of solution for that lower end of the market so that you're still capturing some of that revenue maybe, but
Yeah.
it's not taking as much time and energy away from your team. So,
True,
uh,
true. And there's this temptation of like, oh, the client came in and they're willing to pay us $500, right? But yeah, if I focus on that, I might not have the time and the energy, resources, assets, and all that stuff to work on a
mhm,
bigger client. It's always that
yep.
kind of game that you have to play, or a dance, right? And when you're starting out, it's a little bit different. When you have established, business, when you're starting out, we have a tendency to accept more projects, and that makes a strategic sense too, because you want to test it out, you want to see what works, what doesn't, you want to test out your processes and stuff. But as you kind of move forward, and you should really reconsider whether this is, because it's an opportunity cost too, right? It's a lost opportunity. If I work with this client for $500, I might be losing the time on implementing something that will bring me more money, right? So
Yeah,
that's something else too. Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we may be moving on to that cost piece. Do you have any strategies that you recommend for helping to manage those costs without like compromising the quality of work?
Yeah. So, first of all, something that I call the financial hygiene. You wouldn't believe how often I log into QuickBooks of my client to take a look at P&L and the cost structure, or they send me 3 or 6 months worth of credit card statements, and I see stuff that is just like shouldn't be there. I mean, they buy. There's Black Friday, right? They buy all the Cyber Monday. They buy all the offers and all the tools and all the apps I've never ever used, and they're not planning to use. I mean, like, well, maybe in the future when we start a podcast, we will use this tool, right? And they keep paying a monthly fee. So
Mm,
stuff like that is very, very often something that can save literally thousands of dollars in cost. So that's one problem. The other thing is to make sure that you are hiring the right people, which comes into the efficiency piece as well. But like, if you are hiring the wrong people, for the wrong seat, and let's say you're overcharged, you overpay for that person, right? And then, for example, it's a fixed cost. You have to pay $5,000 a month for media buy or whatever that is. Um, all of a sudden, and then they don't have the work, or they don't deliver the work, then it's a fixed cost that doesn't bring any profit, right? So what I like to do is to always look at the cost, and then see if there's an associated profit that is the result of having that cost. So every cost there has to be ROI on everything we do, or most of it. And like, not everything. I mean, there's stuff that it's just investment, right?
mhm.
Or a sunk cost that we know we have to implement something, right? But most of the stuff I like to look at it from an ROI perspective. If we have this $5,000 employee, how much money is that person generating for our business? And that comes to understanding the profitability as a whole. Because I'm laughing because I had a call with a big agency this week, and we start talking about the I'm onboarding them right now as a client, and then we're talking about the profitability. I'm like, what's your profitability? And they're like, oh, 100K. I'm like, okay, well, 100K is not like, break this down for me. They don't know the margins, they don't know the markups, they don't understand profitability per client. They just have a number, which turns out what they said 100K was a cash flow, which has nothing to do with profitability, right? So a lot of companies, a lot of agencies out there, they just don't understand the concept of profitability and how to look at it and how to break it down. So a couple of kind of tips here. You have to make sure you're profitable as a whole, right? As a business. And let's say, you're an agency, you're delivering, let's assume 2 or 3 different services. Okay. So you do Facebook advertising, Google advertising, let's say, and then you do email marketing, right? So you have 3 legs of the business. So you have to understand whether your business as a whole is profitable. And then you have to look at each leg of the business or each business unit, whether that business unit is profitable. An example from an agency in the UK that I worked with a year ago, they had the Facebook ads, very strong Facebook ads leg of the business, and then they had the Google ads, and they were trying to grow the Google ads leg, but it just kept kind of slipping away, and the Google ads was dragging them down. It was like 5% profitability versus Facebook ads was like 45-48%, which is pretty high, right? So after some time, we were like, well, it just simply makes no sense to keep that business unit that is not bringing you the money. Like, it's very heavy on top in terms of like managers, executives and all that stuff. It just doesn't bring the money, right? So first step is to make sure that you're profitable on the whole, as a whole, right? As a whole company. Then you break it down into business units, and then you go even further and you go like, okay, well, what about the per client? How profitable are we when it comes to that client, when it comes to that project? And this brings us to the conversation of like, wow, maybe the team that we have on that project, on that account, is just not as profitable as we would like them to be. And there might be multiple reasons. They may be, you hire them and you pay them too much, or maybe they're not as efficient as they should be, right? Or maybe there's some other, maybe there's scope creep with that account specifically. So again, kind of like, because of my kind of fraud investigation background, I go and follow the breadcrumbs of like, what is the problem, right? And every agency, in the marketing space, they will understand, the funnel, right? The funnel, and when you look at the funnel, analyze the funnel, you analyze the pieces that are broken. Is it the traffic that's broken that's coming to the website, right? If that is the case, how can we fix that? Are we fixing the click-through rate? Are we fixing, what is the problem with the traffic? Right. And then, okay, once we fix that, then we fix the problem, the conversion rate on the landing page. Like, there must be something wrong with the landing page. Maybe if the traffic is fine, then if people are not converting, then that means landing page is not converting. How do we fix that? Same approach to business. We analyze the problem first, as if it was a funnel, and then we go follow the breadcrumbs of like, okay, if this account is not profitable, what seems to be the problem? And then an example. I was working with an agency, and turns out that I made kind of simple analysis of profitability per client and then profitability per team member. And it turns out that every time this one team member is on the team, the project isn't profitable. So there's clearly some sort of a problem with that team member, right? If that is a common denominator. Every time we move that team member somewhere else, the project profitability goes down. It's like, right? So we already know there's a problem with that. I was going to say with that person, but it turns out there was a problem with their understanding of how to use the tools, and that was slowing them down in terms of efficiency, and that was the result of it, right? So as soon as we identify that, I had an interview with that person, and then turns out that they didn't know how to use the tool, and that was something that should be taking them 15 minutes was taking them an hour and a half, and so that was a quick fix. We trained them, and that was the result was fine. So again, following the breadcrumbs is the way to kind of analyze this. Yeah.
No, that's super interesting. I know somebody I've worked with, they had multiple lines, and I think this one thing that's interesting to bring up is, I think sometimes agencies, when the economy is going really well and maybe they're much more flush with cash, and they're thinking, oh, now is the perfect time for us to expand our offerings. They might branch out into some things that are maybe less profitable at first, but they think are going to like turn into their next line of business. But if those things don't kind of come to fruition, but they just hang around, then when the economy gets bad, they're basically holding on to all these additional lines of business that are like, either have razor thin margins or maybe even negative margins. Meanwhile, their cash cow, like core business, is actually kind of slowly being drained because of those, because of them trying to spread to themselves too thin.
Correct. Yeah, 100%. And you know what? It's easy. I forget the quote and who said that, but it goes into like it's easy to make money when the economy is right, but it's when the economy goes down, it exposes all your inefficiencies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which in a way, like I had so much work during COVID. Oh my gosh, I was so busy. People were complaining about COVID. I'm like, it actually works out for me because it was a massive problem for a lot of people, and we needed to pivot a lot of agencies.
Mm-hmm.
From just imagine an agency that's working in the travel industry or events industry, right? COVID happens, they're dry. There's nothing in there, right?
Yeah.
And they have all these, and that just is almost overnight, right? So so we needed to quickly analyze the situation and see how we can shift the resources and assets just doing something else. And those that were kind of stubborn and unwilling to pivot, unwilling to change, and they're like, oh yeah, but we've been in this business for 10 years, and how are we supposed to now to do something else? I'm like, well, you either do that or you die. That's
Yeah.
there's no other way.
You don't really
right?
have a choice.
You don't have a choice, exactly. And like, oh, we have to let go. Yeah, well, we have to let go of them because like there's no other way. Like so but to your point, absolutely, like it's so much easier, and people are more like very positive and optimistic. It's like a sunny day out there, when it comes to economy. It's like summertime, everyone's like hyped and happy and right? But then when it's raining, you're like, oh, I don't have a coat. Same with this one. The good economy just covers all your inefficiencies. But when the economy goes down, when inflation goes up and all those things, you're like, uh-oh, it turns out I'm not as efficient as I thought I would be, right? So that is kind of exposing those situations, and it's forcing us to change for sure. So we have to look at those other aspects of our business and see, okay, well, if this is a cash cow, why are we really even paying attention to those other things? They used to work. Okay, now it's maybe time to cut them. And it's easy for me to say because I don't have that emotional as a consultant external. I remember working on my stuff. I would talk to other people. I'm like, hey, dude, I see this number. And they're like, yeah, cut it. I'm like, yeah, I know, but they're like, no, there's no but. Right. So so it's easy for me to say those things because I come in, I have zero emotional connection with the offer, with the product, with how long it took you. I understand. I have empathy on all those things, but like there's no emotional. I just look at it from a numbers perspective, right?
Yeah.
And if I see, an employee that's dragging the whole project down, I can also. It's easier for me to say those things. It's easier for me to analyze those things. So I understand it's not an easy task, but it's a task that we have to do. We have to kind of conduct because otherwise we're not gonna move forward.
Yeah. You bring in like a level of objectivity to the conversation. It's like, look, there's no, personal ill will here.
No.
I'm just kind of laying out the facts. And, if you want to be a profitable agency, here are some steps that have to be taken.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yes, but I guess one question that came to mind was, you've worked with a lot of different agencies, and you even mentioned in the pricing discussion how like sometimes lowering your prices can attract the wrong people. I'm sure it's not automatically the other way, where if you raise your prices, you're going to get the right people. But what have you seen as far as across agencies? What has attracted more of the like identify and attract some of the higher value clients?
Yeah. It's a big topic. Like it's everything from branding to the actual how to say that. Well, let me start with this. Every business exists to solve a problem, and as a result of solving the problem, you're making money, right? I solve a problem of inefficiencies and low profitability of an agency or any other business, and I solve that problem. I make money on it, right? The agency solves another problem, they make money on it. So you have to be really in tune with your market of what kind of problem you're trying to solve and what is the level of the value that you bring to the table, right? So if you play in the small leagues, if you play with the small guys, then the problems you're fixing are also small, right? So you have to kind of elevate the leagues and move from one league to another. And it starts with branding for sure. I'm not a branding expert. I wouldn't call myself a branding expert, but I know the basics of brand building So that's one. Number two, it's funny because most marketing agencies do not know how to market themselves. It's so it's mind blowing. Most marketing agencies will rely on referrals, and that's it. And even when they rely on referrals, they will do it. They will not do it in the proper way. They will just wait for a referral to come. And there are 4 steps. If I can kind of make a quick
Sure. Yeah.
sidetrack on this, there's I think 4 steps to proper referral kind of program, if you will. So first of all, you have to be proactive. You have to proactively ask for business. Like if I have clients and then I don't remember on a daily basis on who I should refer to whom. Like I care about my business, right? And it's not because I don't like them. It's because I have other focus. And my priority is my business, not thinking about how I can send someone business, right?
Yeah.
But obviously, I have a list of things, and I connect people, introduce them. That happens. But like this is not my priority. It's not something I'm waking up in the morning like, oh, I'm gonna refer someone to someone.
Yeah.
That's not happening. So we have to be proactive. So you have to proactively remind people, hey, we're doing this. Hey, can you please refer us to someone? So proactiveness is one. Number two is you have to incentivize people. Like, why would I do it? I need to spend the time in introducing you, maybe meeting, maybe doing this and that. Like, that's gonna be my lowest priority unless I'm rewarded for it, right? Um, and what I like to do, I like to reward with discounts for my current clients. If they send me clients, I'm not paying them the money. I'm just discounting their invoice, right, by 20%, for example. Um, so as long as they are my clients, they get a discount. When they leave me as a client, I mean, as a service provider, then they're not getting a discount, right? So
Right.
I mean, we need to incentivize them to do that. And then another thing is to something that I call a kind of rule of help them help you. You want to make you don't want the referral kind of process to feel like homework for your referral partners. Like, oh, please refer me. I'm like, I don't know what to say about you. Like, how, like, you are asking me to write something about you, to refer you, like that sounds like work to me. So you have to help them, right? By how? Well, first of all, you give them you tell them, hey, I'm looking for new business. If you hear about XYZ industry or someone from XYZ industry, can you please send them this and copy paste that into your email and just send it over to them? And also, can you please attach this PDF to the email? And by doing so, you kind of achieve 2 things. One, you make my life easier if I'm referring you, because I don't have to think about it. Or like, I can add a few sentences saying, oh, David is amazing in this and that, whatever. But the main kind of message is there, copy and paste, done.
Yeah.
Number two, what is happening is that when you give people the blurb and the PDF, whatever, however you decide to do it, or link to your website, you are controlling the narrative. You're controlling what is being said about you, and how you position yourself and how you present yourself. Because I remember from my, when I was starting out as a working with agencies, I was helping a lot of agencies with automations, and it's not because I'm an automation guy. That was just part of efficiency. And those clients started referring me as an automation guy, which I hated, and that's not me. I'm not
Yeah.
an automation guy. I know how to set up Active Campaign and Zapier and stuff like that. So I would just actually come in and say, hey, look, it's easy, done, it's done. But that was not my job, So I needed to control the narrative. I needed to control how to position myself, because I didn't want to land a $200 automation gig. I wanted to land a $20,000 profitability gig, right?
Right.
And so that's a different.
Want to solve a bigger problem rather than the small problem that they
Exactly.
had. Yeah.
Exactly. And could I, I could have focused on the automation piece, but then I didn't want to, right?
Yeah.
So you're controlling the narrative when you tell them exactly what to say, right? So those are the 3 elements. I think I said 4, but those are 3. Maybe there's a 4th one, I forgot. But yeah, first of all, be proactive about it. Incentivize, help them help you. Oh yeah, and the 4th one, follow up. So it kind of closes the loop, right? So be proactive. So every quarter or every 60 days, whatever the cadence is that you think it makes sense for your business, your industry, remind your clients that, hey, we have a referral program. Hey, we have a referral program, because they forget, right?
Yeah.
So if you follow those 4 elements, then your referral program, even if you rely on referrals only, will be more efficient than not, right? Just waiting for referral.
Yeah.
So going back to kind of your initial question, like how do we land those bigger clients? So branding is one, and marketing yourself properly. Like how many agencies do we see online on Twitter or LinkedIn that are doing doing content for themselves, and kind of positioning themselves and sharing their knowledge and sharing their know-how and all those things. Like not too many, right? And that is one of the biggest problems. Like how are clients, potential leads or potential clients, your leads, supposed to know about you if you're quiet? It's impossible, right?
Yep.
So I would say content marketing is something that's very neglected within the industry. A lot of companies, especially the paid media companies, will focus on paid advertising because they know how to do paid advertising, which isn't a problem at all. It's just once you stop paid advertising, you kind of close the faucet, right? You stop spending money, you stop making money. Whereas with content marketing, for example, blog posts and social media and all those things, building the brand and building the awareness and know, like, and trust factors, all those kind of typical and basic things for when it comes to marketing. You write the piece for LinkedIn once or your blog once, and it just keeps working for you, right? So even if you stop writing, it will keep on, giving, right? So that's another thing. And you know what? The quality of work, 100%. Making sure that you have the social proof. There's nothing more powerful than 20 people on your website telling you how great you are. I can say about myself so many good things, but you will think I'm, just a cocky Polish guy who likes to talk about himself. But if there's 20 other people saying, "Hey, Mike is great, you should talk to him," then there has to be something in it, right? That's why
Yep.
we have the UGC. That's why you have all these other things. When people are talking about the brand, why is it so powerful? Well, because we trust other people. We don't really trust the brand talking about themselves, right?
Yep.
So that's another thing that is very, very powerful. Leveraging the quality of work and making sure that other people are speaking about it, talking about it in our kind of for us instead of us, right? So
Yep.
those would be probably the main things that come to my mind, quickly.
No, that's great. Well, we've talked about this a bunch. I think you've mentioned it multiple times, but kind of efficiency is that, I guess, big elephant in the room that a lot of, it's the more complex piece, as I think you've mentioned. Can you talk a little bit about kind of its role in profitability, and also maybe I imagine that we're probably not going to be able to fully unpack it here, but maybe kind of maybe the biggest problems you run into and the biggest solutions, the things that you see as kind of the low hanging fruit for a lot of companies.
Sure. Yeah. You can look at efficiency from so many different aspects, and you can be like very, very detailed and like look at a big picture. A very common example, kind of big strategic thing is two things: onboarding and reporting. Very, very common, and those come to my mind quickly because those are very common problems that I'm helping to fix. A lot of agencies will spend a lot of time onboarding clients, and that goes sometimes it's 3, 4, 6 weeks to onboard a client. You send them forms, and they come back to you, and then it's kickoff meeting, and then it's internal kickoff meeting, external kickoff meeting, all that stuff before you. And it's very labor intensive, very heavy on the strategy side of things, very heavy on production side of things. So the first 4 to 6 weeks, if you really look at it and calculate it, very often you're not actually making money on that client. It's a free free month for the client because it's so intense with all the meetings, all the strategies and stuff like that. So we want to make sure that we do those things as efficiently as possible. And a lot of things we can actually automate, right? We can automate the process. We can, for one client, what we did, just a kind of practical example, their process was to meet the client would meet the whole team of 8 people to get to know them, and there was a kickoff meeting and whatever. And those clients were not $25,000, $50,000 per month clients, not that caliber. It was like $3,000 client, and the whole team of 8 people would come in for an hour and a half to meet the client and explain to them and introduce and whatever how they're gonna take care of them, all blah blah blah, like that stuff. First of all, the client could not care less. Second of all, it's an hour and a half times 8.
Yeah.
The way
Because
I
of all
like
those
to
people.
exactly. So the way I like to do it, what the exercise is, we calculate the internal hourly rate of the agency. That includes the overheads, multipliers, and everything we need to take into account. And it's not something we share with the world. It's just our internal hourly rate to calculate the
Mhm.
cost of doing the business. So
Yeah.
if there's 8 people for hour and a half times $100, that's already over $1,000 in cost spending with this one client. Not to mention that all those 8 people for hour and a half, wasted their time in a way.
Yeah.
And then there's debrief after and all those things. So you're just not profitable on that first month. And then what we did, I asked them, hey, why don't you record yourself? And then we will build this one, like we'll create this one video and we'll put it in, Notion tool. And the client, when they onboard, they can watch the video. They don't have to, like, up to them. There's a video that you record once. Yeah, you spend 3 hours on it because you have to edit whatever. Maybe you'll spend $1,000 on it on preparation of that. But it's a one-time thing that you can then multiply times 50 clients. And that's sort of kind of thinking is behind how I look at things. How can we optimize things as well, right?
Yeah.
And then looking at, just keeping the onboarding kind of a theme, just looking at, well, if there's anything, if you have to repeat yourself twice, then that is a candidate for automation or delegation, or looking at, I like to follow the DAD formula, which is delete, automate, delegate, right? You look at it, do we really have to do that in our business, right? If not, then delete it. What if, and I always have this kind of experiment, what if we were not doing this? And most of the people were like, yes, but we've been doing this. Like, okay, I understand you're kind of, this is your process and all that stuff, but just let's kind of like a mind experiment. What would happen if we didn't do this? If we were
Yeah.
not, onboarding clients this way? Oh, we would probably have to do this. Okay, then let's explore that route, right? So delete. If we don't have to do something, let's delete it completely from the system or from the process. And then the next step is automate, right? DAD, automation. If we cannot delete it, is there a way for us to automate those things? Again, my example with the videos, right? This client was like, no, we really need to have this onboarding. This is our process. People love it, whatever. Can we automate that? And recording the video is a way of automation, right?
Yeah.
So we automate. And then the last bit is delegate. So obviously you cannot delegate someone else showing up with a video, but maybe there can be one representative instead of 8 people. Maybe we can have a delegation, a representative, one person instead of 8, saying, hey, this is a picture of Charlie, this is a picture of Thomas, this is a picture of this one. This person's taking care of this person's taking care of that, right? So instead of
Right.
$1,000 spending on this, you're always just spending $150. So that would be kind of my process of analyzing this. And then we look into more detailed elements too, of like, well, again, I would question, why does the media buyer spend 20 hours on this account? Can we cut it in half? And what would it take? And then obviously, to your point, how do we keep the quality of it too, right? So I'm never compromising on the quality, but I'm looking at different ways of doing things so that we can achieve the same goal faster, soon, whatever, right?
Hmm.
And if it's possible, it's again an experiment. Can we challenge ourselves of like, is there a better way? And now with AI, there is, right?
Yeah.
Um, so that's onboarding. And another example that again is very kind of vivid is reporting. A lot of companies, a lot of agencies will over report to clients. Unless you're working with a very high spend e-commerce brand that really needs to pay attention to data, and there's someone that's data driven on their side, which is great. And then you have to report to them on daily basis or weekly basis, big, massive reports of like, all these small elements, CTRs, CAC, and all these elements. Sure. But unless if you're not working with clients like this, if you're doing lead gen, if you're doing funnel building, if you're doing email marketing, you do not have to over report. Most clients do not care. Really, what they care about is how much we paid you and how much money we made in return. That is the main thing for them. If you
Hmm.
can automate a report for them, if you can send them something of just a blurb. I had a client who would meet every single week with their client to present, report, go live, preparing presentation that took them an hour and a half, and then go live with the client on a Zoom call for another hour to walk them through that. And I watched the video. I'm like, the client is just completely checked off. They're checking their Slack while you talk to them, and they're here because they think they have to be. They don't care. Right? So
Yeah.
but my client thought they're over delivering because nobody else is doing. They're like, oh, in our industry, in our space, in our town, nobody's doing the reporting like this. I'm like, yeah, that's great. I don't mind over delivery and going above and beyond. But if someone doesn't care about what you deliver, then it's not over delivery.
Yeah.
They
It's
don't
not value to them.
It's not valued. So why would you do that?
Yeah.
And then and again, that is an experiment. An experiment is what would happen if we cut it completely or move it to a quarterly one or monthly one, or just a blurb in an email say, hey, look, this is this is how much we spent, this is how much we made, the CTR is up or down, whatever. These are the next steps. That's it, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to create this beautiful report for the client. I'm not saying this is a general rule, but I'm just as an example, right, of how we would look at profitability from that perspective.
No, absolutely. I think that's great. That's a great framework, honestly. I like that. Delete, automate, and delegate.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Can you share any examples or of like tools or processes? I mean, the dad one is one example, I think, but that can significantly increase agency efficiency.
Yeah, that is the one. For the and I get a lot of questions like, what is the best tool for this or that? There's no such thing. You can make every tool work for you. Whether you use ClickUp, Rike, Notion, Slack, whatever that is. And people will fight. It's funny to watch that. I take popcorn when, there's Facebook group and people like, no, Rike is better than ClickUp. I literally take popcorn because you can make every single one, work for you, right? It really doesn't matter. So however you like to work and whatever works best for you and your team, because that's the most important piece. A lot of people will go like, oh, we use ClickUp with this client, we use Slack with this client, we'll use WhatsApp with this client, and we'll use this with this client. I'm like, that's a mistake. You have to stick to your own processes because you are the one who's replicating the process and replicating the results. And you are the experts in how you deliver those things. When you all of a sudden start customizing those little things and how you communicate with the client, then that will throw off the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same way you go to buy a car to a dealership and you're like, they tell you the terms, the financing terms, and like, oh no, what if you gave me 73 months at this and that? And like, that's not how it works. And what if I gave you this document instead of that one? No. Right? So there's a process and there's a reason behind the process, right? So you have to stick to your process, and there's a reason behind it. The reason is you're the expert in the process, and thanks to that process, you can deliver the results in the timing and for the money. If you start kind of questioning and you start allowing your clients to change your process, then all of a sudden you'll have this Frankenstein of a model that is just inefficient, right? So you have to choose the tool very often. So I'm sure people will like, okay, yeah, but what is the best? There's two tools, Rike and ClickUp, that are very, very common for the project management side of things. Mm-hmm. And the Notion is the one that will help you also to use instead of like Google Drive. It's very good for onboarding your own team members, keeping documentation in and stuff like that. So Notion as a kind of repository of documentation, and then ClickUp as a project management tool. Some people are now moving from ClickUp to Notion. They hire developers and stuff like that. That's up to them. But like those two tools are the kind of at the forefront of what is being used within the agency industry. But really, again, if you want to use Google Drive, that's completely fine. I, for example, just recently moved to Notion myself, but I used to use Google Drive for a lot of things with my clients, and people are like, oh, but this is so simple, this is so basic, blah blah. I'm like, that is the point. Because now I don't have to train my clients on how to use Notion. I don't have to train my clients how to do this. Like, hey, here's the doc, fill out the form. They're like, so simple. I'm like, exactly. Right? So because there's this trap. A lot of people think, especially in the beginning of the journey, of like the more sophisticated stuff, the better, because it just looks more professional and looks like bigger. We're the bigger company. A lot of people would get excited about how many people full-time work for them. Like, oh, we have 10 FTs. I'm like, okay, do you need to? Like that is the badge of honor, right?
Yeah,
for
the vanity metrics, basically.
It is, because I don't care. Like, if you need to have 10 people and we can do the same work with 3, then like who's better? You know what I mean? So and they don't talk about profitability. They talk about the FTs. So
yeah. Well, maybe related to that, You mentioned kind of the three things you look at, but are there any other sort of like KPIs that you'd recommend agencies kind of pay close attention to make sure that they're kind of headed in the right direction, or to help them to know when they're going in the wrong direction?
Yeah. Well, there's probably like 10-ish of those, but so there's gonna be the growth rate of your business, right? So are you growing? Are you slowing down? And, are you is there stagnation happening? There's gonna be those three or multiple levels of profitability too, right? So the overall profitability of the business, and then per business unit, per account, per project, like broken down into
Mm-hmm.
more detailed elements. Because the growth rate, it tells you like, has nothing to do with profitability. Are we growing? Are we expanding? Are we getting more clients? Right? Profitability
Yeah.
is like, okay, well, because we might be growing, that's great, but what if our profits are going down? Funny story: a client of mine, $150,000 per month in a business. I don't remember, 4 or 5 team members, I would say. And then profitability was, she was taking home, no, sorry, profitability of the agency was $20,000, of the whole agency, after all the costs. Now we moved her business from running an agency to a completely different model of kind of fractional CMO type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
more of a consulting role with a group consulting aspect of it, which is, I'm a huge proponent of that. And she is now making more money working less, and the profits are bigger, but sales are way slower. So she's making, her profitability is closer to 60%. So
That's amazing.
yeah, so 150K, and all this hustle with team members and vacation, and I'm sick, and this, I need promotion, blah blah blah, all those things, and 50 clients, whatever that number was, versus 3 clients, same amount of money, way less stress, way less time, way less overheads, way less of everything, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
growth rate itself, how much we're selling, that doesn't really matter. I mean, it does matter, but like, it's just one metric, one way, or one dimension of how we look at things, right? So you have to break it down into seeing like, okay, what is the actual profitability? How much money am I taking home?
Yeah.
From the external perspective too, like how, what is the client retention? What is the churn rate, right, on it? What is the lifetime value of the client as well? We want to make sure that this is the highest, as high as possible. And then going and looking into kind of the inside of things a little bit, I would say, what is the satisfaction of our, what is the efficiency rate of our projects, as well as satisfaction on our team member side of things, right? Because hiring is a project. Hiring is a very, very labor intensive process, and then training people, and then waiting for them to be fully efficient in the role. So we want to
Mm-hmm.
make sure we're not losing them just because they don't feel appreciated, or just because they want $500 per year more, or whatever that is, right? And making sure that we motivate them properly. When I say motivate them properly, what I mean by that is, not everyone is motivated by money. Surprise. But that's true. Like, some people are motivated by the title. Some people want to have bigger scope, bigger responsibility. Yes, there are people like that. And then some people, yes, they do want more money. But some people want more. They prefer to spend, to go home on at noon on Friday versus making $2,000 more, because that's more valuable to them. So
Yeah.
we have different motivators. So understanding the motivations of our team members, and then trying to accommodate for that, is very, very important too, because it's very costly to hire and train person and then put them in a new account or new project, whatever, right? So we don't want to lose them just because we don't understand them, right? So those are top of my head, kind of.
Yeah. No, that's great.
Yeah, yeah,
In one There is one agency I worked for, that I think did that really, really well, is that they, yeah, it was very personalized. And like early afternoon on Fridays, they had what they called Wine Friday. And it was like, we're just stopping work early and we're going to crack some bottles of wine. And,
yeah,
and that's actually ends up being like a good team building experience. And, um, it actually made people like, it's like something you miss when you're no longer at the company,
mm,
um, because of that. So, and it's like, honestly, Friday afternoons, a lot of times the team is checking out a little early anyways, mentally. So it was kind of a natural thing. But
right.
well, yeah, I mean, I think we're running up against time here, but it's been great chatting and kind of learning a lot about what you do. And I guess the only question I really have now is what's the best place for people to find you if they want to chat more with you and kind of dig in deeper?
Yeah, I'm very active on LinkedIn, and I do have a website. So you can search for my website is Mike Koziol, MikeEkozIOL.com, or you can just type it the same name on in LinkedIn, Mike Koziol, KOZIOL. And yeah, I'm posting every day, putting a lot of content out there, helping agencies and consultants and freelancers, all that stuff. So if anyone is interested in learning more and following my journey, then yeah, those will be the two best ways to kind of reach out. I do have a newsletter. I write weekly as well. I do have some free resources for agencies. I have something that's very, very popular, by the way. It's a free kind of workshop of 27 power activities to scale your business, and there's in 3 levels: 5 to 25,000, 25 to 50, 50 plus, because the activities that we kind of focus on when we are at $5,000 or $20,000 per month are completely different
Mm,
when you compare them to something that you do when you're making $150,000 per month.
yeah,
So that is a free resource that anyone can get access to on my website.
cool. No, that sounds
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing a bunch of your wisdom with us. I know I learned a lot. So thanks again, and look forward to keeping in touch.
yeah. Thank you, David. Thanks so much for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, my pleasure.